Welcome to the Loaded Goat. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Aaron's friend, Christopher.
You are my friend, and your name is Christopher. How you doing?
Things are good. Dog days of summer, baby. It's stagnant heat, but I like the sunshine. How are you doing?
It's hot. It is hot here. I don't mean to carry on about the heat, but we've also been having some crazy rainstorms, and it's funny. It's funny. The other day, Randy Turner called me while I was driving right in the middle of a monsoon, and he wanted to tell me a few things. The first thing, and the storm just kept getting worse and worse and worse. But the first thing he told me was Wallace Ford, that guy who played Aunt Bee's annoying old boyfriend, Roger Hanover, on an episode a few weeks back.
Yes, sir.
He was also the clown in the movie Freaks. Did you ever see that, the 1932 movie?
No.
Are you familiar with it?
No, but I know, there are freaks in my life.
There are freaks in your life. And he and a few other people have followed up. I was wrong on the statement about Aunt Bee having children. I misheard something on The New Housekeeper where she said most of the youngins I took care of are gone, and I took it up as most of my youngins or most of my children are gone. But really, at the end of the day, she just took care of other people's children.
So do we know that, or is that just a theory that the glitterati of the Andy Griffith world are all aligned around? Is that the only moment that she says? Because to me, that goes either way.
Her name's also B. Taylor. It's not something else. That was something else that Randy pointed out. And then the monsoon really, really started getting bad. And I told Randy, it's getting crazy here. I need to get home. And he told me to drive carefully. And I said, don't you tell me what to do.
Don't you tell me what to do. Don't you correct me. Don't you tell me what to do.
I'm just kidding. I'm the latter. Yeah.
I agree with you.
On what?
On Aunt Bee having children.
You still got my back here, even though I
am completely on your side.
There's no side. I have acquiesced.
Even though Randy is way taller than you, I'm going to take your side.
I have acquiesced that I'm wrong here. I've acquiesced that I made a mistake.
Well, I'm telling you, you don't have to.
Well, I appreciate that, but
never give up.
The ship has already sailed. I'm going to fight the fights that need fighting, and this is not a fight. This is something I lost.
Let's talk immigration.
Let's talk man in the middle. The episode we're doing today. What'd you think? Good
episode, new storyline.
Yeah,
I'm happy with it. I kind of like when Andy's made the putts by the putzes. Is maybe how I'd characterize this show.
I mean, everybody at the end of this episode should turn their wrath to Barney Fife.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't. I mean, that's what's so funny. Somehow everybody blames somebody else except the man who's caused all this strife.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Barney's got to get going.
Yeah. Stirring up strife. So do you want to go ahead and dive in? Strife by Fife? Strife by Fife. Strife by Fife. Okay, there we go. We got it. That should be a shirt.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so you want to dive in?
Yeah, let's I might go feet first, but yeah, let's do it.
All right. This episode first aired on November 2nd, 1964, and it opens with Andy and Helen walking up to the jail, and they've just had lunch, and they plan to meet at 8:00, and he tells her to wear the pretty green dress that he likes. So
I just saw the show Tick, Tick, Boom, and there's a song called The Green, Green Dress, 20 Buttons on a Strap. What a pleasure to undress. So I got that song stuck in my head after he said that line.
Yeah, we don't talk about undressing on the Andy Griffith show.
I wasn't implying that. I was just quoting someone.
Fair enough. It is like, as you watch the two of them, when they actually do these scenes together, and it's like, it's been so hit or miss, but this is one where we really got to see some back and forth with Andy Griffith and Anita Kerr. So they really do have a great chemistry.
Yeah, there's more rapport here than we have ever seen.
Yes.
But a flame that burns too bright might go out. Foreshadowing.
This flame continues to burn for seasons to come.
Okay.
So just then, Barney storms past them into the jail, and Andy goes in to see what's going on. Barney's like leaned against the wall, like staring off in the distance, and he gives Barney a minute, and then he starts to ask, and Barney says he doesn't want to talk about it. And then he keeps saying it and keeps saying it. But of course, it eventually reveals that he and Thelma Lou had a fight.
Dot, dot, dot.
And I'm on Thelma Lou's side with when he breaks down what the fight was about. The fight.
Wait, quick thing. Have you ever had a friend that tries to like talk to you like I'm not going to share, but then they share and does that exact same thing that Barney's like, I don't want to get into it, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to get into it, blah, 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 blah.
Not since high school. And this episode is straight out of high school.
Absolutely. Yeah, I haven't either.
Yeah. So the fight boils down to the fact that Thelma Lou says he doesn't take her anywhere. And I can't really do it all justice off the top of my head, but it's like they go to church, they watch TV, he takes her to the diner for the special. Maybe I can't remember what the other two things are, but it's just like, and then it turns out that she thinks he's cheap.
Well, I mean, he totally is. It's also small town living. Like they go to the diner. Okay, what other stores? Also, it's pretty bold of Barney to take her to the diner with Juanita working there.
You know, I've never thought about that, but that is extremely valid.
Yeah. That's the number one rule of being a playboy. You don't take one of your girlfriends to the other girlfriend's employer.
Well, Barney is not a playboy. I mean, but I do think
then polygamy, like non-monogamy.
I think some heavy flirting is what I would think. I don't think of Barney as a playboy or anything like that. I do think Juanita is. I may be wrong here, but Juanita is the type of person to. I could be wrong. Is the type of person to basically, show up at your front door saying, he's been cheating on you with me.
Absolutely, with a dead cat.
With a dead cat. I mean, I maybe that's giving Juanita. Maybe we're selling Juanita short, or we're not.
Well, I think that is not selling short. I think that's holding someone up to a high standard.
But yeah, I mean, so I can't even imagine if Barney brings Thelma Lou in and sits down, what Juanita's got to be thinking when they're at the diner.
Preach it.
I hadn't even thought about that. Well, we don't go down that road. The point is Thelma Lou thinks he's cheap. He is cheap. Barney can't live with the idea that someone thinks he's cheap. Barney then carries on about how 5 years were wasted, and Andy tries to console him. And then Barney says they weren't meant for each other. Maybe they weren't meant for each other. And Andy gives a very, very weak, I can't stress this enough, and placating response of it's possible.
Yeah. I was thinking here that it would be what Andy said is basically the old-timey version of some people are here for a reason, some people are here for a season.
Yeah. That's who said that?
I don't know. I think probably, Becky with the good hair.
Becky with the good hair?
Oh, that's a Beyonce quote.
Okay.
That whole joke just flopped so badly.
I mean, sorry. I let you down.
Okay.
He then says he'll be a bachelor like Judd McIntyre, who has been living alone for 25 years in a shack. And every time you see him, he's just happy with the big, broad smile. And then Andy responds with, yeah, but basically says, talking to himself.
Yeah. And then, that could be Barney's future.
Barney's future, yeah. And then, but it's not going to be, because Andy says he might change his mind after a good night's sleep. And Barney says he's finished with women for good. Cut to Barney and Thelma Lou making out on the porch. And
is this the first episode that we've seen a lot of kissing?
I mean, I think we've seen some kissing on some other episodes, but it's I think we've seen a lot of the times it's Barney and Thelma Lou, like Barney always trying to kiss Thelma Lou and Thelma Lou going, "Oh, Barney, stop it," or things like that. But and I mean, we see kisses, but there's a lot of kissing.
Full frontal snogging, which is what this is.
It was, full frontal snogging. So they're not doing side kisses or anything like that, or what is it?
Yeah.
Did you ever see that video? The rappers doing that song, "Give Me That Christian Side Hug"?
No.
Oh, it was the idea was it was like they were doing this rap song, and it was like almost like it was like with sirens and everything like that. It was like give me that Christian side hug, and the idea was you can't do a front hug because that's too personal, so you do a side hug, and they're not doing any side hugging on this episode.
No,
that's for sure.
They're not.
And so they both say they're sorry. Barney says he's going to start ponying up more, like a steak sandwich, which is $1.25, and soup and salad.
More choices.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the whole thing is opening up, and all is right in the world. And then Barney starts laughing.
Oh, actually, I have a thought for later. I'll hold it for a second.
Okay.
Sorry. I was thinking of a different scene.
Okay. And then Barney starts laughing, and Thelma Lou's like, "What is it, Barney? What is it?" And then finally he shares that Andy said that Thelma Lou may not be the one for him, which is not any
Barney.
Oh, Barney.
He did Andy real dirty there.
He did Andy real dirty there, and it was an unnecessary mistake.
Yeah, completely.
And so Thelma Lou gets upset. She goes in a huff inside. She's thinking Andy.
Thelma Lou is warranted to be mad about this.
Oh yeah, no, this is. I mean, the problem. If there's anything that Thelma Lou, as they say later, is acting a little childish. But the biggest mistake everybody makes is giving Barney Fife the benefit of the doubt.
Correct.
Yeah. So she goes inside in a huff. She thinks Andy doesn't like her, and Barney screams, "Well, don't take it out on me. I was just trying to make conversation," which is just really funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next morning, Andy comes in and says Thelma Lou wouldn't speak to him on the street, and Barney tells him what happened. And Andy basically says that he didn't say that, and he was obviously just trying to make Barney feel better.
Let's talk new storyline, but like predictable flow. But what I do like is that they build from here out, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They do. I mean, we're in the same sort of misunderstanding caused by Barney trope that in relationships that we've seen in a lot of episodes. I mean, we've seen it with the Fun Girls. We've seen it elsewhere. And this is one where Barney is exceptionally, you're just kind of like, they could all turn their wrath on Barney at the end of this episode, because then Barney goes to lecture Andy about keeping his nose out of other people's relationships, and then punctuates it with, "Am I getting through to you, fella?" And Andy is like irritated, and with him, he turns around, and Barney then comments on how red his neck is. I'm just kind of like,
they're taking cheap shots.
They are taking cheap shots. And of course, Thelma Lou and Helen are chatting, and Thelma Lou is still upset. And Helen suggests that Barney may never have exaggerated. Helen suggests that Barney may have over-exaggerated, and he asks if she has discussed this with Andy. I mean, this is like the most. I mean, obviously, this episode, it kind of reminds me of, like, I went and saw L.A. Confidential with this person in college. I told you this story. And she kept going. Every time something happened, she'd go, "Wow, oh man," and would do that through everything. But have you ever seen LA Confidential?
Yeah.
Well, they kill those people who are the suspects at the very beginning, and she turns to me in the middle and goes, "I don't think it's them, because this movie would be over by now." And I was like, "Yep, yeah, it would."
Yep, I love you. Please marry me.
Yeah, no, it was like I went home and I said, "Mom, I found the one." No, she says she never wants to speak with Andy again, and instead of just saying, "Yeah, you're right, Barney probably over exaggerated and I should just go ask Andy," and Helen tells Thelma Lou she doesn't think she's being fair. And then Helen says she's not going to try to get in the middle of it, and Thelma Lou starts to leave, and Helen asks that she stay and that she has never seen her act this childish before. And you can imagine all that Thelma Lou hears is that she's being childish.
Yeah, which never plays well.
No, you don't ever want to call somebody. You don't ever really. I mean, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People did not ever say, "You know what, comment on their maturity level in a situation." I mean, that's
when people are all riled up, put them in a box.
Yeah. Tell them they're immature. That'll win them over. And she says it's nice to know who your friends are, and she storms off.
Womp, womp, womp.
Womp womp. So later, Barney comes in the jail and says, "What's with Helen Crump?" And Barney says Helen called Thelma Lou a child, and Andy agrees that Thelma Lou is acting pretty ridiculous. And Barney says he's seen Helen act childish too. And Andy asks when. And this episode is so quotable at times because it's like Barney goes, "Today, I think it's pretty childish of Helen to tell Thelma Lou she's acting like a child." I mean, it's so funny. And Andy disagrees and tells Barney he's acting like a child. And Barney says, "Take the dame's side." And Andy's not
What
having
did
that.
dame mean back then?
Oh, I think the fun girls were dames,
Like, okay. Ditzy.
Unscrupulous, carefree women who may or may not be running up and down the road with some traveling salesman.
So it's not like Dame Judi Dench.
No, that is, I guess if they called her Dame Helen Crump, that might be something more respectable. But when they call her Helen Crump a dame, that's not the same thing.
I agree.
So Andy says, "Don't call Helen a dame." And after a back and forth, Barney Fife finally says, "So deep a friendship hath one man for another, that no female caress shall ever tear it asunder." Boy, the guy that wrote that must have been some kind of nut. And, this is from the Gospel of John. So it's like,
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we go
There's
to
also a modern day saying for that I think is adapted from that I won't say here.
Is it start with bros?
It is.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't know that was from the Bible.
That's not
Imagine
from the Bible.
if the bros knew that was in the Bible.
If the bros knew, well, I think that I think there's been famous phrases. There's been phrases for putting your male friendships before women since time immemorial.
I mean, male chauvinism is as old as Job.
As old as Job, old as Adam.
It is as old as Adam.
Yeah. So this episode was produced by Pod Machine. They do great podcasts at a great rate. Go to podmachine.com to learn more and enter Loaded Goat at checkout for a 10% discount. After the break, Barney pulls up to the Taylor household and honks. Andy gets in, and Barney is still upset. And
Andy's still picking him up.
I know.
It's like a 4-minute walk. Opie does it all day.
I know. Andy finally just says they need to work things out because Barney's still upset, and he basically says they can't let what a third party says come between them. Barney agrees to forget about it, but they need to get Helen and Thelma Lou to patch things up. And don't worry, Barney Fife is on it.
He's on it.
He's on it.
Like Marmite on toast.
Yeah. Back at the jail, Thelma Lou comes in because he called her, and then Thelma Lou shows up too because he called her. And they both start to leave, and Barney basically calls. Go ahead. What do you guys like?
Well, before you go, this is when Thelma Lou, she says she has to get back to work. What does she do? Have we ever heard this?
All I know is she works at an office. That's the indication we get. Yeah.
Okay.
And so basically, Barney calls them over emotional women, which naturally irritates them.
Mm-hmm.
Then Barney mentions the third party line, which makes Helen mad at Andy for being so insensitive.
I don't think this is that bad. I get the over emotional piece for sure. I get being called childish for sure. Third party, it's like just roll your eyes and be like, all right, what is this, guys?
Yeah.
Let's talk it out.
Yeah. So Andy comes in. He's happy to see them together because they've apparently made peace. And Helen says, "The name is Helen Crump, Crump," and storms off.
Barney like that.
And Barney tells Andy what happened, and Andy is fed up with all of them. I guess at the end of the day, he's got to have somebody in his corner, so he doesn't just cast Barney out. But I imagine he's got to be annoyed with him too.
Yes, completely.
Yeah. So Barney says he's done trying to work things out too. We cut to him on the porch trying to sweet talk Thelma Lou, and she says Helen is very upset and doesn't care if she sees Andy again. And Barney says Andy feels the same way.
I feel like their relationship was pretty thin. If this is how quickly it ends. And then also they're both so quick to move on. You've been in this relationship for a year, and that afternoon we see what's next.
Yeah.
No, it is afternoon. It's not even nighttime.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we had a day pass or a night pass. I mean, because I get the impression they agreed. So I get the impression that going forward, Barney and Thelma Lou agree to try to get them back together. And as they're thinking about it, Barney keeps trying to put the moves on Thelma Lou, but she rebuffs him, and they come up with the idea for a blind date where they set the two up. And I'm thinking this is like a few days down the road.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it's like an hour later.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Well, it could very well be. And so we later see Andy leaving with Thelma Lou and Barney to go on this blind date. Why he is going is beyond me. And they pull up to Helen's house, and Thelma Lou goes to get her. And Andy comments like this is something out of high school. And I say amen to that.
I think a blind double date? My goodness. It's also, they didn't fully think this through. It's like having both meet at the diner at 7 o'clock versus picking it. It's so strange.
Well, this reminds me, they talk about high school. This reminds me of a fight I got with a girlfriend in high school. And this was on, so if you were a first year football player back then, you had to wear a skirt to school on homecoming day.
Okay.
Some of the folks had a lot of fun with it. And, well, some people wore leather mini skirts and things like that. I wore a very classy skirt, red and green skirt that went below my knees. And it was something my mom let me wear.
Did you have to play in it?
No, we don't have to play in it. You just wear it to school that day. So I go in, and everybody's laughing because it's bus duty. Everybody thinks it's really funny. And then I see my girlfriend sitting there, and she's not happy. And she won't tell me what's going on. And so I go to sit with her on the bleachers later, and she gets, try to sit next to her, and she gets snarky with me. And so I got up, just, adjusted my skirt and stormed off. and I don't know. I was still never knew what was going on. And then it turned out that somebody, one of her busybody friends, had told her that she'd heard that I said I was getting tired of her. And then it turned out later that I had never said that somebody had speculated to her that said I may be getting tired of her because of something they saw. And so we worked things out. But it was one of those things where I was like, this was an all-day fight.
Yeah, we didn't need to have this.
No, we didn't. But that's very
supposed to be a pretty day in a skirt. I was hoping that she was like mad at you because you are wearing her skirt, or you took her, something like that.
Oh, that would be a story right there. No, I did not. And but I will say that this is one of the closer things I've ever seen to just people being silly and there being a misunderstanding over people playing telephone.
Totally.
Yeah. So at Helen, she sees that it's Andy, but decides to go since he's still there. And they drive out into the country, and Andy asks if they were going to see a movie, and Barney says it's an awful picture called The Monster from Out of Town. And I've just decided that's just a terrible name. That's just such a funny name for a movie. But I've decided, yes. Did you come up with an idea for a plot for a movie name?
Of course I did. Well, I was all stressed. So I got your text that we should come up with the theme for this and I said agreed to doing it. And then I kept looking for the season 5 episode Monster from Out of Town. And I couldn't find that. So it took me about 5 minutes. And then I was watching The Man in the Middle, going through, and I was like, I don't know where this monster is going to come from. And I think you were trying to trick me because I think that you thought that I don't pay attention when I watch, and that this is such a small little reference, and it happened in the car on their double date when they're out in the desert.
It was not something where I was really trying to mess with you. I thought we could have a little fun with this.
All right. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
I actually have 2, so I'll do my first one.
Okay.
My first one is this. It could be like this student art house movie where it's the monster from out of town, but it's this point of view shot where this person keeps going, and you don't know what the person looks like. And then you see the person's just scaring everybody, and the person's doing all of these things. And you're like, what's going on? Why is this person a monster? And then then finally you get to the end, and you see the person just doesn't look like them, and they're not welcoming that person.
Oh, interesting. A little xenophobia undercurrent.
Yeah.
And then something flashes at the end where people can donate to create more inclusive societies.
I was thinking more like a Twilight Zone kind of feel, but that's just me. Yeah.
Okay. So mine is 1930s, southern small town. There's a sheriff and a deputy. They're listening to the radio. They hear on the radio an interruption from an NPR story hour. What do they hear? A terrifying serial killer is on the loose. The deputy says to the sheriff, "We better help." The sheriff says, "No, we can do whatever we want. They'll tell us it's not going to come anywhere near our little small town, and they'll let us know if that happens." Flash 2, the monster from out of town is in town, and the sheriff and the deputy have to go try to get them. So they're driving all around town. They go out. They decide to split up because there's this annoying thing that's happening with the dog. And then all of a sudden, the sheriff and the deputy go different ways. The deputy runs into the monster from out of town. He sees him, pulls him, handcuffs him behind his back, pulls him in. Then the sheriff finds them locked in an old cabin. They do this like weird little thing, trick him, grab him, pull the gun, end up arresting him. Boom, monster from out of town.
I feel like you have basically just lifted the story of every Manhunt Andy Griffith episode and slapped it on the monster from
and
out
it
of town.
Works for those writers. Why can't I get away with it?
Well, you raise a good point. Thanks
very much.
The other idea I had was the monster from out of town was a movie that ended up being remade as Predator 2. Predator 1. Have you seen Predator 1?
Yes.
Okay, so Predator 1, great action movie in the jungle. Have you ever seen Predator 2?
No.
Predator 2 takes place in Los Angeles, and Danny Glover's a cop, and he's trying to take out the Predator. It's not as good. It's not as good as the first one by any stretch of the imagination, but the tagline was, "He's in town with a few days to kill." And so I was just like, that'd be perfect for the monster from out of town.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
But I think we could go in different directions with this title.
I think we could.
Yeah. So
I greenlight all of them to go to pilot.
Thank you. So that'll send this. This is exactly what these projects need, is your approval.
Thank you. Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
So Barney and Thelma Lou go for a walk, and Andy and Helen make up. Doesn't take very long for this because the whole thing is kind of dumb. And Thelma Lou come back fighting. Thelma Lou and Barney come back fighting about going dancing. And Thelma Lou asks Andy and Helen if she is right. And Helen starts to speak, and Andy stops her, and they start kissing. And Barney says, "Boy, as soon as they're through, are we ever going to have a fight?" And we go to commercial.
It's cute.
Yeah. In the epilogue, Andy is playing his guitar and singing to Helen. She asks him to sing The Fox, and Andy says Barney likes to sing that too, and he calls for
It's fun to watch his fingers play the Fox song.
Oh, yeah. And Thelma Lou comes out, and Barney follows, and he's covered in lipstick kisses, and he says he has to go home, and we close.
Kissy.
Kissy. The one thing I understand that, you don't want to besmirch reputations and everything like that, but they do often. There's a lot of making out around each other that these two couples do.
Very high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how many whistles would you give this?
7. New storyline, easy to watch.
I think that's fair. I'd give it 7. Yeah, it's very quotable, but it's also kind of very in the same space of what we've of the Great Misunderstanding episodes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
No, sir. It's been a pleasure to see you.
It's been a pleasure to see you too. Check us out. Thanks to everybody for listening. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. And if you think about it, subscribe. Next week, we'll do Barney's uniform. And until then, Christopher, let's go see the monster from out of town.
Okay.